I'm here with Adrian in the beach bar in Inishbofin, and actually first came across Adrian about, I don't know, was it 7:30 or 8 this morning on Facebook?
Yeah, alright, last night was, I suppose, the first interaction.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I suppose I just arrived on the island and I was updating my Facebook and Twitter and letting people know what I was at. And yeah, I don't know, how did you come across me?
Lorraine Higgins, should be a senator, happened to see your tweet that you're out in Inishbofin, very windswept and I suppose in horrible conditions, and she said that you should come on down here to the beach for a cup of tea,
That's
warm
right.
yourself up.
I was playing the poor mouth on Twitter.
He was. And funny enough, we made the offer to come down for a cup of tea and collect him, and then he didn't come anyway, so sure, there you go. But that was, I suppose, the first, and then just randomly, the next interaction, I suppose, was this morning at about 7:30. You mentioned a cup of tea.
I was cribbing again.
You're cribbing again, and Declan Horn, a friend of mine since we were babies from home in Loughrea, happened to also say, go down there, you'll get a cup of tea and warm yourself up. So then I said, Rory, come down and have the breakfast, and geez, he didn't do that either.
You're showing me up here completely. I was after a feed of porridge now, in fairness.
Oh yeah.
So Adrian, I told you a bit about what I'm up to at this Hitching for Hope tour. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to get a sense of people's vision for Ireland beyond the kind of standard, the doom and the gloom that we're hearing a lot about. And like, you're obviously running a business here and it seems very successful, and you're obviously have a fair bit of get up and go about you. I'm just wondering what your perspective on the current state of play is.
God, I think one thing we all need is hope. Without hope, there's very, very little, I think, chance of anything being achieved past people kind of getting stuck in the we'll call it mild depression that there seems to be at the minute. I think we're in a lucky position out here that there's an element of escapism when people come out to Inishbofin. They're out for a weekend, and you can't say people can leave their troubles behind or leave their financial situation behind or anything else, but it's a very beautiful area, it's a very positive area. It's kind of good for the soul, good for the body, and I think sometimes if you need headspace and thinking time, it can afford you that pleasure when you're out walking around the island and whatnot. So it's definitely something that's the place can kind of, I think, maybe bring different emotions to what maybe you might find in a city. Or there's a lot of good personalities, there's a lot of kind of great people out here as well, and the impact that has is you get a kind of a good, friendly, warm welcome. And I think when you've all that kind of mounted together, it's just good for the soul. If not
How did you end up here?
God, how did I end up here? I came out here to manage a hotel called the Inishbofin House Hotel back in 2008, and I was there for about a year and a half, and during that time I met my current partner Orla, and we, I suppose, were together, and when I was finishing up with the hotel, we were looking at what would afford us the opportunity to continue to stay together, and kind of employment would have been obviously a major factor, and Orla's very settled here and family is here and everything, so we looked at what was her family business, and then come December 2010 we took that over. I suppose an interesting thing is, and it's funny that the word hope comes up in your travels, but say we probably hadn't a pot to piss in when we were kind of going into it, would be kind of
The technical term.
the technical term for how it was. But I remember being on a website called Sundance, American website that does a lot of different things and jewellery and the likes, and there was a ring, a kind of a bet silver ring, kind of distressed look, and the word hope is engraved into it, and funny enough that's what she wears every day. So it was just kind of funny that hope was part of the Hitching for Hope thing, you know. So it's a very emotive word, I think, and it's a very important word, I think.
Have you experienced tough times in getting the business up and running? Was it a challenge?
There was definitely challenges to it. Absolutely.
Did you ever doubt yourself or doubt the business?
No, I think it was built on a very long-standing kind of goodwill. the business was in Orla's family for an awful lot of years, and they'd have been really part of the keystone of hospitality and entertainment isn't the right word, but hospitality and just kind of warmth out here. So, there was a good foundation stone there, and it was just a matter of building on it and kind of creating what our vision was for it and what it needed, we felt, to be. And the times, I suppose, 2010 was 2 years after the infamous bank guarantee. That probably put a lot of challenges on people. The week that's in it at the minute, there's an awful lot of teachers out here. There's a teaching summer school out here, and like, even having chatted to them, this will be our third summer here, and a lot of them would have been staying with us in the B&B and dine here, drink here at night, play music. And it's interesting sometimes when you're having kind of one-to-one chats on how, particularly from their career and where they'd have felt their career was always going, even financially, how the recession, the additional levies, everything like that has had a huge impact, massive impact on, I suppose, bottom line and take-home pay at the end of the week. So you kind of sometimes feel where people are at, because it's a huge repeat business, and you see how their lives change on a year to year, and the strains, what's the word I'm looking for? Challenges that people face. Kids growing up, kids maybe going from primary to secondary school, the challenges that brings and everything like that. Similarly here, when kids go from primary to secondary, they move to the mainland, so there's a lot of kind of challenges in that.
Do you think there's hope for this island?
I think there is hope for the island.
The island of Inishbofin.
Yeah, I think there's enough people that care about where it's at, and I suppose feel that there's nobody stupid, particularly not out here. It's a lot of clever souls, and the one thing that I'd say they 100% know is that you have to innovate, and you have to recreate, and you have to ensure that you kind of stick to things that, I know, people, how am I putting this? Stick to things that people were about, that people cherish, people like. Goes back to homeliness and welcomeness and all that kind of thing, and the place has a kind of a lack of commerciality from that point of view. It's a very honest place. I think when people come out here to holiday, they actually feel like they're engaging in the community and that they're welcomed into it and whatnot, and that's a very powerful feeling that they get. So from that point of view, there's a lot of hope from the tourism side of the world. After that, small classrooms, very clever kids. They've a lot going for them. They seem to do very well when they go to school and university, and a lot of professionals come from here, so what they can bring back to it, and hopefully try and work on kind of the employment side and seeing where
we go.
Where it goes, yeah.
What about Ireland in general? Where do you see the hope for the future as a country?
I think, again, there's a couple of things. There's a reason a lot of companies come here rather than our low corporate tax rates, but it's because there's a skilled workforce, there's an intelligent workforce, and there's a lot of talent in the country. That's one angle, but there's nature to it as well. I think I was amazed to hear the other day the level of racial attacks that have happened in the last 10 weeks. It was shocking. I was very surprised, but that's taken out from frustration or what. I was surprised, but I think there's a corner to be turned, and when it does, it'll make a difference. But
so do you think some people are blaming the recession on immigration, or
I think
why is racial attacks?
I think it's born out of frustration more than anything, and I think the minorities will always suffer when people are frustrated. Maybe a different complex comes in, and they perhaps feel people are taking their jobs and whatnot. But
if you were just put you on the spot for a second and say, if you were Taoiseach for a day or a week, I'll give you a week. If you were Taoiseach for a week, what would be some of the main actions you would take?
Jesus. That would be the main actions I'd take.
And I mean, you're only there for a week, so you don't need to get re-elected. You can be
you can be
ambitious.
As ambitious. I think a lot of it has to go back to irrespective of our David Drums and co, that's one thing. Okay, it was a catalyst to where we're at, but there was also a lot of complete and utter recklessness in the run up to that, and I think whether something like that can be addressed, I'm not sure. I think community-based schemes, infrastructural community schemes, whether it's schools that needed to be built, that roads, whatever the case was, for me, skilled tradesmen on the dole just never really makes sense when potentially if different infrastructural projects were to start, there's the VAT revenues to be got from them, there's the employment, there's PRSI coming back into the national kind of coffers. I can't get my head around not working to create, how do I put it, more jobs, that kind of stuff, and get people kind of back into the working scheme.
So it sounds like if you were Taoiseach, you would enact some sort of national regeneration programme.
I think it should be look at a lot of the things that were shelved maybe in the last couple of years and see, can they be done? Do you know, it's a tough question. It's very easy to spout rubbish, I suppose, of what one would do if they were Taoiseach for a day. Honest to God, I think the government are in a challenging position. I think there's more factors than the layman can probably know about bondholders, shareholders, stakeholders.
What would you do with the bondholders?
I feel that if I bet on a horse, if it doesn't come in, Paddy Power doesn't give me my money back. When you invest in companies, okay, bonds might be a bit different, but when you invest in high risk bonds, you're putting your money in to generate money. You're also there to take on board the risk of losing money. So I know quite a few, I know even a few friends of mine in my own age that would have been successful in their jobs, that would have, whenever they got their yearly bonus, which may have been a 5-figure bonus, and went into Bank of Ireland shares or something of the sort. When you look at, they dropped from, I don't know, was it near €20 down to about 40 cent. Like, nobody was looking out for whether it be young and upcomings that had bought share portfolios or bought shares in banks, or let's say people of my parents' age who all their lives always knew that the bank shares were a solid thing to have, and lost maybe their life's work almost to that stage. So there was nobody there. Our government didn't turn around to them and say, we're going to secure all your funds.
Yeah.
So why did they necessarily go and do it for foreign investors that invested in our country?
So we're still paying back the major bondholders. I mean, are you basically saying you would call it a day on it?
I think it should have been called a day.
Burn them.
Okay, there's a huge fallout from it. As in, will people find our country investable in the future, or will we be able to raise bonds on markets? Will anyone want to buy them? So where is the money going to come from to run our country? Like, it's got a massive cost to run it on a daily basis, but it's been done in the past, burning bondholders, and there's corners that can be turned. I don't know, would it have ever been worthwhile looking at going back to our own currency and trying to maybe devalue and create a positive kind of flow of export out of the country or whatnot, and build ourselves back up and have some kind of control of our economy?
So it sounds like you're saying all options should be considered on the table.
I think everything should be on the table. There's people currently in senior positions in banks that disgust me, to be very honest, that were involved in whether it be the corporate financing at a very high level.
What would you do about those? I mean, there's lots of calls for inquiries and so on.
There has to be accountability. You can't just, either run with a cavalier attitude that...
I mean, so are you talking, do you want to see a long-running inquiry? What do you want to see?
Not a tribunal, but this parliamentary inquiry that has been talked about. I'm not quite sure what that's going to go either. I know there was one in 2010 private inquiry, and I don't know what the results were. Seemed to be private out of that, so there wasn't that much in the line of arrest or anything else that happened. So it's really hard to know, but I think there has to be some form of accountability.
Yeah.
There's a track and trace to everything. Jesus, you can't make many decisions or make many actions in life without there being a trail and a either a positive or a negative outcome. So, they can probably tell us all the positive outcomes that there has been over the last couple of years, which during Celtic Tigers there were fantastic positives and fantastic improvements in the country. But then there's been a lot of ones that seem to be a step backwards, and as a result of maybe people's bad decision making. I think our own government, I cannot see how they can plead ignorance to conversations that were had over a night where they decided to underwrite all our banks. There has to be some kind of accountability there too. Because my whole angle seems to be that the financial system is the ruin of the country. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you might be right.
I don't know if I am or not, but I feel that it has been such a factor that it can't be turned around, and it has had massive implications on communities where potentially funds would have been available for community initiatives, community schemes, maybe urban redevelopment and whatnot, and a lot of that isn't there anymore, so that's going to have a knock-on effect for the next generation. The potential for I don't want to say underprivileged areas now, but we'll say areas that could really do with additional support or care, or giving young people hope that there's something out there for them and that people care.
When we start this interview, you used the word soul twice. You said hope for the soul. Like, what does that mean for you? Like, what does hope for the soul? What does it feel like, or what? Because if somebody doesn't have hope, they might not know what hope is.
That's it. Hard to say. I suppose hard to describe what hope is to somebody who maybe, I wouldn't say can't see the wood from the trees, but who feels that there is no.
Well, you sound like you have a degree of hope.
Oh, I do.
And what does that feel like?
Like it feels good. I'm hoping my hope is naivety, that somebody at some stage is going to say, right lads, we need to do X, Y and Z, we need to stop necessarily looking out for ourselves and drive resources into allowing people to see that there is a future and there's a potential for the country. And it was an amazing nation, still is an amazing nation of amazing people, I think, very well respected all around the world, professionally, personally, in every way. I think people feel to the soul again that Ireland's a very soulful country, that there's something about it that's very raw and natural and comforting, and it's how to describe to somebody
when
that
you
doesn't understand hope.
When you say that thing, that there's something about it, what do you think that something is?
I think to a huge percentage of the population there's maybe an honesty. There's bearing their heart in their sleeve kind of thing, or
kind of a decency.
Decency, yeah, an old-fashioned decency that I still don't think is lost. I think maybe it can be a bit mislaid sometimes, but I don't think it's lost at all.
So there's hope for the future.
All going well.
Thanks, Adrian.
No worries.